We're going to get the thoughts from our next guest, Danny Kelly, who joins us from The Ringer. You would love Danny. You know Danny, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football, Ringer NFL Draft Show, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated. Of course, they got fine American beer there at Georgetown. Manny's Pale Ale, Bodie's Off IPA, Lucille, Rogers, and I'm telling you, something special coming soon. Tap room open, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. Danny, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good. You got some witty joke today about, about, the election. No, it's not about the election. It's about my top 5 rankings coming out.
Big day in American history here. We got the NFL trade dedeadline.
There it is. I want to put all those people. We're going to, you know what? I might just jump early to the barge. All
You're
you
gonna put yourself?
Stupid media people that make that joke every year.
Yeah.
But putting you on the barge. Just every 4 years, the same stupid, big day coming up tomorrow. Big day.
Very important stuff.
Very important
Could
stuff.
change the future of our city and our country.
Yeah, it's college football rankings coming out later today.
There we go.
How surprised are you when you watch the Seahawks play? Just how sloppy they have been this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the penalties, the procedure penalties, not having guys on the field, running guys late onto the field. It just seems like they are one of the most disorganized teams I can remember.
Yeah, it's I would say like one of my first impressions I felt like over the first 3 weeks of the season was that, this feels totally different. This is a disciplined team. This is a team that is obviously all on the same page, and that's gone completely out the window the last few weeks. You know what I mean? Like, this is one of the most frustrating. Like, that loss to the Rams, I don't know if I've been that frustrated in literally like a few years in terms of just watching the Seahawks. I was like, it was a grotesque display of mistakes and terrible decisions and what was it, 12 penalties, 7 sacks, 3 turnovers,
11 quarterback hits.
Just, oh God, it was just so frustrating to watch in so many different ways. And then, of course, you add in like all the people talking about like, why do we fire Pete Carroll again? Like, that to me is just annoying. It's like, can we move past it? Like, he's gone. He's not coming back. That being said, like, I understand the criticism of Mike Macdonald right now because, this is, I think, a big deal that they're just so undisciplined. And I think it comes back to, like, again, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think, like, just the leadership on the Seahawks team needs to step up at some point and like get these guys all on the same page. You can look at coaching for sure. But I mean, the players are the ones that are out there just lining up in the wrong spot. The formational penalties are just driving me insane. And of course, I will say, for people that don't watch the NFL, this stuff is happening all over the league. It's kind of weird. It's been like a big focus for the NFL this year, like procedural penalties. A lot of guys are getting called for like moving forward at the line of scrimmage right before the snap, lining up in the wrong places, like all these things. So it's happening all over the NFL. It's a weird focus for the league this year. And it's just like, who wants this? Who cares?
And they've really, it's weird. It's interesting you bring that up. One thing I've noticed is that they've really called the offensive linemen down the field.
Yeah.
A ton.
They're just really ticky-tack this year.
Yeah.
They're like trying to set an example for these teams. We saw this in the preseason. Actually, no, sorry. We saw it in the first game. You remember? It was Chiefs-Ravens, and there was like 8 procedural penalties in the first half, and they just like kept calling guys for being. It was like offensive linemen like a half a yard too far back off the line of scrimmage. So for whatever reason, this is happening around the NFL a lot. It's not just the Seahawks, but I think the Seahawks in particular have been really frustrating to watch. Just from a discipline and lining up in the right spots. This isn't like even a particularly young team. This is, I think I looked at like the snap weighted age for the Seahawks, like players. That means like the guys that are actually playing, they're like in the middle of the pack. It's not like a really young team. So there's no real good excuse other than I think coaching is letting them down and the players are just not doing a good job.
Danny, we talked about this, I think, earlier in the season. I don't think this would have been a problem had he not taken the pictures down.
Yeah, let's point to that. I think that's a good idea. Let's definitely do that.
If they lose 2 more games, that's going to be my whole thing. It's going to be my whole.
I actually really like this take.
If they lose to the 49ers, Cardinals, and then if they lose to the Jets, I'm going to go full wrestling. And like my working thesis is going to be If you didn't take the pictures down,
I'm jealous of this take.
okay,
it's a really good take.
How things would have been different, and I want to just see
sliding doors moment right there.
I want to just see how far I can take it.
Yeah.
To how much I can just really rile people up to think that I'm serious about it and just to really piss them off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna really lean into it. I think it's like for Halloween. Anytime I dress up for Halloween, it gets I really lean into that character where I won't break character like the whole night.
Method actor.
Yeah, I'm a method actor.
Basically Daniel Day-Lewis right here. You got to get like
a shorter, chubbier version. Yes.
He hasn't worked for a few years. That's that version of Daniel Day-Lewis that you're.
Yeah, where has he been?
He's just enjoying life. I don't know. He's probably, he'll come back at some point.
Can't even tell you his last movie.
The Phantom Thread, maybe, which I did not see.
I'm not 100% sure Gangs of New York.
No, come on.
I can't remember.
There was Gangs of New York. There was There Will Be Blood.
Yes.
The Phantom Thread. I'm probably missing a handful.
He was so good in There Will Be Blood.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Iconic.
The end of it.
Yeah.
The milkshake, the bowling scene, just
so good.
God. All right, it's the Daniel Day-Lewis podcast here with Danny Kelly. All right, you mentioned something earlier. I want to go back to it. Decisions. What decisions were made that you found curious in that game Sunday against the Rams?
I actually liked the decision in overtime, if that's where you're getting at. I don't know. Where did you land on that one? I thought that decision in overtime was ultimately, I like an aggressive mindset. I know that like you could make the argument that the defense had been playing all right that game and gives them a chance to win if they kick that field goal right there. But like it's 4th and 1 and you can't get a yard in 2 attempts. I just think the decision making of like the play call maybe is what you could bring up. And I think I didn't particularly love it just based on the fact that they didn't do anything on 3rd down. They couldn't get much push. The defensive line had been like annihilating the Seahawks all game long. They couldn't really run the ball. I would have loved to have seen them load the box and then do some sort of like play action rollout, give Gino a couple options like short, medium, long, like give him some ability to like make a play versus just try and run it up like down their throats or whatever, and just hope for the best. To me, that was the decision I didn't really agree with. I thought I'm almost always going to be like being aggressive is the right move, especially when you're going up against Matt Stafford and a really good offense. I think that was the right call. They obviously did not execute. I don't like the play call.
Yeah, I'm kind of a wet blanket a little bit, but listen, I only like a 52% wet blanket on this one. Yeah. I was back and forth. I lean towards them wanting them to kick the field goal because of what you said earlier. I thought the defense was playing really well. I thought the defense deserved an opportunity to finish it off. But again, you can say the counter to that would be,
look what happened.
They look what happened. They went right down there and scored. I get that. Maybe things are different if they don't take it over right there. I mean, my God, that series should have been over. If Woolen catches it, right? Because that's the interception he drops. Right? Is that first one in overtime? Am I right on that one?
I'm trying to picture it now. I don't remember.
Okay, now I'm second guessing myself. Was that the one he dropped was in overtime? Was it not?
He dropped one in the end zone, right?
No. He dropped one. The one where he waited for the ball, and then the receiver went and grabbed it.
Yes. Yeah. That's correct.
So I just think I'm with you. Probably 9 times out of 10. I love being aggressive.
Yeah.
Love it. But I guess my thought on it was, listen, they can never pick up a yard. They can't. Now, they were running the ball pretty well, actually, on that drive. And so I get why the decision to do it. Like, God, he's picking up like 4 yards, 5 yards every time he touches it. But I don't know. I had a bad feeling about it. I know some people have been critical that, when the Rams called a timeout, you came back in the same formation.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that would be a criticism there of Ryan Grubb. But I wanted them to kick the field goal. I'm not going to sit there and die on a hill on it and be like, that's the worst decision ever. It's just, that's what I would have done and put it in the defense's hands. But again, I certainly see the other side of it. And you saw it last night with, Mahomes and Stafford and these guys when they get the ball, man, they are they're unbelievable with the game on the line.
I think, and I'm the same way as you. I'm like, I'm not like passionately go for it there. I think my point of view is always like, what would the other team's fans want you to do? And I feel like most of the other team's fans probably want you to kick there, not go for it and go for the win.
100%.
You know, it's like scarier if you're going for the win. And if that's like my philosophy is just like do what the opposing team's fans don't want you to do, you got to go for it there. I personally, and like if we're talking about like decision making and play call and all that, it's like, and I always feel this way, but like getting everybody and lining up in a really tight bunch formation with everyone right in the middle of the field and thinking your guys can just overpower the guys in front of you, like doesn't make any sense to me. Why didn't they spread things out? At least, you know, give the Rams something to think about. Maybe we'll pass it. Instead, it was just like they could load up and like go as hard as they possibly could at the line of scrimmage and like blow up the play. If you watch the play, like guys were flying in off the edge. Like JSN missed a block, and that was the guy who ended up tackling Kenneth Walker. Like he flew in off the edge. It's like he's like an outside guy. So I don't know. It just annoyed me that they kind of just like loaded the box and like thought that they could like overpower this defensive line that had been like working them all game.
I mean, how much do you think of it is just this like we keep hearing it over and over again. We got to run the ball. We got to be physical. We got to run. And then Ryan Grubb's like, I don't want to run here, but God, if we pass it here and we don't get it, they're going to say, why didn't you run the ball? It was 4th and 1. But if you go back to earlier this season, I can't remember which game it was. Maybe the Giants. Remember they had a 4th and 1 situation, and they rolled out to the right. And did Geno trip and fall or something? You remember?
Oh, that was that the goal line one where they
no.
It was 4th and 1 on the goal line and he got his foot stepped on.
No, that was against the Bills.
Okay,
There was a game earlier this year where they tried to go forward on 4th and 1 and they rolled him out to the right, and I think he tripped or fell or someone blew it up. It's just like I think I'm just guessing here that Grubb probably was like, I really want to throw it here, or I really wish I had Roma Dunze here, and I could call a 4th and 1 reverse. But if that doesn't work, I'm going to get barbecued. I'm just going to do what every other coordinator does in the NFL, and I'm going to run it up the middle.
Yeah.
And, I think, I don't know. I just think you get caught up on this notion that you have to run so much that maybe it influenced his decision there. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, honestly, like it was a weird ass game. I saw this stat. I don't know where I saw this stat. My friend sent it to me, but it was basically like if you add up all the sacks and interceptions that Geno threw in the game, it's like negative 30 EPA. So like expected points added. He basically took 30 points away from the Seahawks. But on all the plays that he wasn't sacked or intercepted, he added like 28 points. He was like incredible on all the plays that he didn't make terrible. It was like the worst game for any quarterback I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like those picks, the horrible pick 6, the horrible pick later. Obviously, like those look like terrible plays. But like if you look at what he did in the game, also to bring him back, get him into overtime, he was throwing some freaking dots out there. And so it was like that was like also complicating the decision making too. I'm like, if they decide to throw in the situation, I could defend it because like look at what Geno did for the last like couple possessions. He brought them back. But then on the other hand, it's like he also basically put them in this position to lose. They should have been up probably like 15 or 20 points in this game at some point. So yeah, it was a complicated decision. It all came down to it. He basically just ran off left guard or whatever it was and didn't work. But I'm not going to lose sleep over the decision to go for it. Frankly, I think it was the right choice.
Is it fair? Do you think it's fair to have a conversation whether, as of now, after what are we 9 games? Yeah, 9 games in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to just they get the head coach right here? They get Mike Macdonald right. Is it fair? I'm just asking.
Is it fair
to at least bring it up?
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's
fair to bring it up.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fair to bring it up.
Put you on the spot.
I do think it's fair to question with all the penalties, all the sloppiness, all the everything that's kind of gone wrong with the Seahawks over the last couple of weeks, like how much coaching has to do with it. But at the end of the day, I still am a Mike Macdonald like proponent. I still think he's like the right guy for the job. I just think like everything that's kind of could go wrong has gone wrong for the Seahawks the last few weeks for whatever reason. And it doesn't necessarily bode well for for the coaching, but or it doesn't reflect well, I should say, on the coaching. But I'm still willing to give him some time here. I'm still hopeful that he's going to turn things around. I don't think he's the one thing I will say is like I don't think he's an idiot. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think for the most part I have like thought his decision making has been good. And you know what? The defense was a lot better in this game.
Yeah, it was.
So like if we're trying to find some like positives, like they played a really good Rams offense pretty damn well. And he's not the one throwing the pick six from the 5-yard line. So like that play in particular kind of changed the game completely in my mind. Like if he comes out a tough win against a really good Rams team, like I think as a pretty good Rams team, if they'd won that game in overtime, I think we're having a totally different conversation. And so I think that's something you have to keep in mind. He lost the game, but like, did he lose the game? No, I would say no.
I would agree with you on the defense. I thought the defense, they gave up 13 points.
Yeah.
I'm taking away the touchdown in overtime, but the 13 points in regulation to a team. Now, did they get benefited? I think they got benefited because Nakua got kicked out for just something that was so stupid.
Right.
And I don't know how you throw them out for that, but okay, whatever. It benefited the Seahawks. I get it. If I were a Rams fan, I'd be pretty pissed off about that. And I think you have a right to be pissed off about it. But I thought the defense played great. And I think he acknowledged afterwards that he simplified it. And I think that therein lies some of the problems with him this year. I think his defense is so complicated and is so much about trying to confuse the offense. It's what offenses have been doing to defenses for the last 10 years. It's Kyle Shanahan. It's Sean McVay. But I think his defense was confusing his own players, and I think he needed I need to reel that back in. And then I wonder, I don't think that's the case for Grubb, Danny. I don't think it's his offense is too complicated. I just think it's what we've been talking about all year long. He just does not have an offensive line. And if you don't have an offensive line, you just can't get to your playbook. I'd love to know what percentage of the playbook he can actually dip into.
Right. Yeah, and that would be like my defense of Geno Smith too this year is that like if you look at the numbers, I think I saw this from Mina Kimes actually, like Geno Smith has had by far the most quick pressures applied on him than any quarterback in the NFL this year. Like, and that means it's not like he's holding the ball and trying to do too much. It's like, oh God, there's somebody in my face right away. You know what I mean? So it's really frustrating, honestly. Like I think one of the big takeaways that we have to have this like nine games in is like, man, can the Seahawks are they ever going to have a good offensive line? You know what I mean? Like it just feels like we haven't had a good offensive line since 2005 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, I look at some of the best teams in the NFL and they have really good, solid offensive lines. You look at the Rams, for instance, they're spending big picks on these guys and they've managed to like fill spots when they have players leave with reliable veterans. It's like, it's not rocket science. You have to invest in this. And, the Seahawks have invested some into it, but the results have been pretty atrocious. Like every year the Seahawks offensive line just sucks. And then this guy they drafted in the 3rd round, Christian Haynes, I actually was pretty excited about this. And he's a freaking healthy scratch in this game. I don't understand like why we can't have nice things. Why can't this offensive line? And
it's, and all of the stuff coming out of that too, Danny, was this guy is, you got Jim Mora, who was his coach at UConn, talking about this guy's NFL ready.
Yeah.
The physicality of the league won't bother him. And then all they've talked about is how now he physically just can't hold up at all. And how bad, and look at how bad and how poor Anthony Bradford has been this year. And that, just imagine how poor it is in practice with Haynes.
And he's not even the backup. He's a healthy scratch. He can't even it's like, it reminds me of the LJ Collier thing. It's like, can't even get on the field. Can't even get on the active roster on game days.
And I think they said it was something about personnel because they wanted Olawatimi as like an extra, like, offensive lineman to bring in. I don't know. It was, it's bad.
It's demoralizing. But I've seen like people have looked into kind of like the history of John Schneider's offensive lines. It's like no continuity year over year. It's always something different. Very few guys have been re-signed to deals. And I think you brought this up a couple weeks ago. It's like, who's the best offensive line they've had in the last like 10 years? It's like Dwayne Brown. who was
well, the
like
last
a 36
Pro
year
Bowl,
old. Yeah, he's like a 36-year-old guy they traded for, which man, that was great. Can we do more of that? Let's get more of those happening. I'm really excited about Charles Cross, but apart from that, it's really demoralizing, and it like hurts the whole offense. I think this could be like a really good offense.
Yeah.
JSN came on strong. He looked awesome in this last game.
Imagine all the yards he would have had without the penalties.
Yeah, seriously. And getting DK Metcalf back. AJ Barner looked pretty interesting in this game.
Yeah. I like Barner.
Cody White, who, let's be honest, I totally knew who that was before this last game. I totally was aware that he was a human being on the Seahawks.
I had never really seen him, but I had to listen to all the guys in the training camp because they always gush. They always gush over one player. All the reporters, God bless them, and it was always Cody White. Cody White. I'm like, ugh. Okay.
So this might be legit. Maybe there's something there with Cody White.
He looked good.
But yeah, I don't know. To me, it's like I don't think Gino is probably not like the long-term, whatever, but I think he's pretty damn good, especially relative to like what you're paying him and how you got him. And I think the offensive line is a bigger problem, and the defense, if the defense can play like they did in this last game, then this could be a really interesting team. I just think they need to like start having the offense and the defense play well at the same time.
That would help.
Never seems to happen.
What about John's? I said this earlier. If let's say ultimately, if years down the road, they move on from John Schneider. One thing that will be written about was a lack of ever addressing the offensive line, and then the thing that always surprises me is never having a plan after Russell Wilson.
Yeah. You were talking about it as I came in, like when they first got hired, or when John Schneider first got hired, it was like, we in Green Bay we drafted a guy every year. Always had like a pipeline, and then he drafted like 2 quarterbacks ever. So it was something like that in like 13 years with
Wilson,
14 years.
and then oh my God, who was the other idiot that they drafted late? It was a late draft pick.
What's his name? He was like the mobile guy with all the didn't he have a bunch of tattoos?
Was he Rutgers? Teal?
Go?
Oh yeah.
Teal.
Magoo. The Magooster.
Oh God. I'm sure I'm guessing that there was maybe like 1 or 2 other guys in there, like late round picks, but they did not do what they said they were going to do, which is like try and invest in the position every year.
No, they didn't. They did it all. Yeah, it's just I don't know. Magoo. All right, before you go, it's a waiver wire Tuesday fantasy football. What do you got? What do you know?
The waiver wire is rough this week, guys. I would say at the running back spot, like your best bet is probably Isaac Guerrero for the 49ers. If Christian McCaffrey ends up not coming back right away, or maybe they're trying to ease him in over the next few weeks and don't really play him a lot, Isaac Guerrero could be the starter with Jordan Mason still nursing a shoulder injury. So that's like a guy to keep in mind. Past that, there's basically a bunch of handcuffs at the running back position. Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier. These guys are not necessarily people you want to plug into your starting lineup, but they're more like stashes in case guys get hurt. And at the receiver position, Jawan Jennings for the 49ers is a guy that I think you should go grab. If Cedric Tillman is out there, absolutely make him the priority pickup this week. But also Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore for the Browns. That offense is pointing in the right direction with Jameis Winston. I know he didn't have a great game this last week, but they just pass at a higher rate, and he's just more accurate than Deshaun Watson was. And Xavier Legette for the Panthers is an interesting option, especially with them trading Jonathan Mingo. Like, he's kind of going to be like their number 1 going forward. And then for tight ends, Mike Gesicki and Taysom Hill are like the 2 guys I would go look for on the waiver wire this week, I should say. Taysom Hill, especially because he's just their red zone specialist. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to get opportunities for carries and targets in the passing game.
What do you about that? Real quick on this question from Joey. Time to give up on Travis Etienne. Thinking about dropping him. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, probably. I think right now, at the very best, he's going to be in a timeshare. I know he's coming off an injury, so that may have something to do with like how little he's played over the last few weeks. But like Tank Bigsby is just straight up better than him.
Yeah.
So, I am not like 100% sure that we're going to see less ETN going forward, but I think right now, like he just is not very valuable, and Dowdle looked pretty darn good in this last game. I think they're going to ride him a little bit more. Zeke is well past his prime. But I mean, obviously, the Dowdle thing is interesting because Dak is going to be out like a month.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the upside really case is. He's sort of like a plug him into to flex. You might get like 9-10 points type of player. I would say more likely. But it's better than maybe being on the ETN train right now. The ETN is like not startable at this point.
Okay. There he is, Danny Kelly from The Ringer. He's with us every single Tuesday at 10:20. You can follow him on Twitter, Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer for The Ringer Fantasy Football Show, plus The Ringer NFL Draft Show, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Check out the tap room, open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. You can catch all Danny's episodes up on YouTube. Check him out also on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find a podcast. Of course, up at pucksports.com.